My name is Nate Weisenberg, and I'm here recording this oral history interview for the Atomic Heritage Foundation. It is April 25th, 2018, and I'm here with Ruth Huddleston. And if you could start by saying your full name and spelling it, please.
Ruth Huddleston, Huddleston.
And let's sort of begin at the beginning. Can you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born on September the 8th, 1925, at Windrock, Tennessee, a little coal mining camp.
And did your parents work there at Windrock?
Well, my father had a sawmill for the Windrock Coal and Coal Company, and he worked there. But then the mothers didn't work, you know.
How many siblings did you have?
I had 6 brothers and me.
Oh my goodness.
And I was the oldest.
That must have been very interesting.
It was. I was the mother of all of them. And still am to 3 of them. When they have problems, they call me. 3 of them have passed away.
And for people who aren't from around here, can you sort of describe where Windrock is?
It's I guess it's about 8 miles to the lower part of it. And at the time I was born, there was an upper part too. You know, you had to go up the mountain to get there. And that's where I was born. The top of it.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your childhood was like? What some of your memories from your childhood are?
How far back?
As far back as you'd like to go.
I have to think just a minute. There's a lot of things. I had to do a lot of work because I always helped we had 11 cows, and it was my job to milk 5 of them from the time I was about 6 years old till I was 18. And I helped my father on the farm. I helped him plant the seed in the spring, and I helped him gather them. And then we went to church as a family, and I took part in the church. My father was the choir director, and I sang in the choir then. And then after I got through elementary school, I went to high school. And at that time, they didn't have a bus that ran, so my father had to make arrangements for me to go to high school. By the time I was a senior, though, they had a bus that ran. And at that time, we lived at the lower part of the mountain. And I was always interested in helping others. I always wanted to help children that couldn't do things, to help them to be able to achieve it. So my desire from as far back as I can remember was to teach school. I had teachers, and they always assigned me children to help, and I really wanted to do it. And for some reason, they decided when I was in the 3rd grade that I didn't need to go to the 4th because I'd already helped them. So I was passed to the 5th. And then when I got promoted to the 8th grade, they decided that I needed to go to high school because I'd already done the work of the 8th grade. So to me, that was a mistake. I loved, learning. I still do. I like to learn new things. And, but socially, when I got in high school, everybody was older than me. And it was a problem, but I had to learn to adjust to it. Because my father was real proud of me and my mother. They thought it was great, but to me it wasn't, But I got adjusted, and I went on, I graduated from high school. And after I got through high school, I went to summer school at the University of Tennessee with my teacher. And guess what? In September, I was asked if I would go teach at the top of the mountain, grades 4 through 8. Had them all in one room. I had boys in my 8th grade that were older than I was. But they respected me because then parents really got them if they didn't respect their teachers. And, later those boys became some of my best friends. And I have to add this, not too long ago, I was on the river at Oak Ridge here eating at a restaurant. And somebody that knew my brother came over and pecked me on the shoulder and said, "Say, aren't you Ruth Sisson? Used to be." And I looked at the man and I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Do you know that you were my 4th grade teacher?" And that was such a blessing because, a lot of them have passed on. But I taught that, I accepted that position. And you had to ride up a man car, they called it, to get to Windrock, up to the top of the mountain. And there was 32 miners rode up that man car with me every morning and back that evening. But then that was kind of a hardship, but I adjusted to it. And that, I'd have time in the afternoon to visit the parents. And I think back now and I wonder what they thought of somebody not quite 17 years old teaching their kids. I kept thinking about it. And I thought, now when this year's over, I'm not going to teach until I'm qualified. But then I got me a job in a hosiery mill. And do you want me to tell what happened after that?
Sure, please do.
Okay, after I went to work in the hosiery mill, I'd been working a while, and everybody was applying at Oak Ridge for jobs. And I thought, one day, two or three of the girls said, "Why don't you go down and apply?" And I said, "Oh, I think I will. But first I've got to talk to my father about it, because I didn't have a way to go, So my father went with me, and he applied too. So we both got the jobs. And I started working at Oak Ridge. And that was when I became a cubicle operator, what we called it, but now it's a Calutron girl. And this was quite an experience. It was different from anything I'd ever done. But it was an experience.
So you and your father, would you commute to Oak Ridge together?
At that time, we did, but shortly after we both went to work, we were on different shifts. But they started running a bus up to where we lived. And at that time, you know, we didn't live on the top of the mountain. We lived at, well, Dad had a place there at the lower part of it. And at first I was reluctant about that bus because it was like a cattle car, you know, it was hooked onto the back of a and that we had to ride in that cattle car. Of course, they had seats on each side of it, you know. And we got to know a lot of people on our way. And it was about 8 miles, I guess, we rode it. When we got to the entrance, we had to stop at the gate. And guards got on, they checked us real well. Okayed everything, we had to show our badges, you know. And then we went on to the portal, we called it, where we went to work, got off of the bus. The same bus. And when we got off of the bus, they checked us as we got off, and checked us as we went in. And that's when we faced the mud, you know. They had made us some walkways, and you had to be real careful because they were narrow to keep from going in all muddy. So about, I don't know how many weeks now that we had to train, and then we were ready. But when we were trained, it's when they gave us what we had to do, I mean the information. First thing they said, they told us that we were all supposed to leave everything that happened there. We didn't tell anybody what we did. And they meant it. They told us the consequences, fines, and if they caught us doing something, you would be automatically discharged. And of course, if you wanted to stay, you better do that too. And I know my son likes to tell about one of my granddaughters that's in Georgia. They gave her an assignment one day to report on Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And they were up to see me, and she was talking about her assignment. Said, you know, I've got an assignment about Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I said, I worked there during the war. And she looked at me because I had never told them that anything. They just thought I'd been teaching school all that time. But I got to help her firsthand with a lot of her information, you know, which was a treat for her. And after, when I got back to when I got cleared, you know, to go to work, well, they took us to this room, and it was filled with what we call cubicles. And that was a big apparatus. It was metal, had all kinds of gauges and meters and all that you had to learn to operate. And then we had, after we learned, well, I'll just tell you, they told us when it got out of hand, if it went over too far to the right, we had to adjust it to get it back where, it's supposed to be. If it went too far to the left, we had to adjust it. And sometimes you couldn't adjust it. Sometimes you just had to sit there and fool with it. But if you couldn't, we had a supervisor to come and help us. We called him, and he came and helped us, or she came. And sometimes you had to shut it down. And but we weren't supposed to tell anybody that we operated those at any time. And if anybody asked you what you did over there, I never did answer them, really. Because I didn't know, really. I know not a few days ago, my daughter asked me this question. She said, didn't you ever think about that thing blowing up if you didn't get it where you wanted? I said, well, sure, I thought of that. But you just thought, and that was all.
What motivated you to work at Oak Ridge?
Well, at that time, I was kind of curious what kind of jobs they were getting. And, well, to me, another thing, I thought, well, I want something a little better than what I'm doing. And so I just did it. Curious, I guess.
And when you were at the cubicle, were you just sitting on a stool during your shift?
Stool, yes. You had to sit there all day, and you didn't get off too much, except to go to the bathroom or to get your drink, because you were afraid to leave it, Just like that, it was out of order, we'd call it.
How long were your shifts?
8 hours. We worked rotating shift, 7 to 3 and 3 to 11 and 11 to 7. And we rotated, all the time, and sometimes we worked more than 8 hours. Especially at the last.
And did anyone explain to you why you were working the extra hours?
No. They just asked us how many of us would be available to work extra hours, and everybody was available on my shifts. I think Ray told me there was 22,000 of us on all different shifts.
Do you remember how many other women would be working with you at the same time?
You mean in that one room?
Yeah.
No, there's about 20 or 30 of us. I don't remember for sure. I don't know if I ever counted them, really.
Yeah.
You just got your place and stayed there.
And can you tell me a little bit, what were your interactions with some of the other people who were in Oak Ridge like? What did you talk about? What did you do?
Oh, we just talked about things we did, but we didn't talk. And I have thought about this, especially since I started being interviewed. I've thought, why didn't we ever wonder what we were doing to each other, Why didn't we talk about it? But I don't remember ever even saying, wonder what we're doing. I don't remember ever asking anybody that. But I met some real nice people, and they were from everywhere. And most of them, you know, were 18 or 19 years old.
And at this point, did you live in Oak Ridge, or were you still commuting from Oliver Springs?
At that time, I was still coming from Oliver Springs. I was still at home, you know.
And what were your impressions of Oak Ridge? You mentioned the mud. Was there a lot of construction going around? Did it seem like a very busy place?
There sure was. There was construction everywhere. 'Cause I lived here before they had Oak Ridge, before they started it, and I know what it looked like, you know. It was more or less farms, beautiful farms, and real pretty homes. And it was, if you went to Clinton, Tennessee, you had to go right through where Oak Ridge is right now. And, well, it was amazing to see how quick they would get things up built, you know. But I did live in Oak Ridge later. Well, my husband-to-be was in Germany. He was in World War II. And after he came back and we got married, we lived in Oak Ridge in a trailer. And you had to apply. That's where you started living. We lived in a flat top after we got in the trailer. And then we applied and got a TDU, what they call a two apartment.
And what was your husband's name?
My husband's name, Lawrence Huddleston.
Lawrence Huddleston. And so you were working as a cubicle operator in 1944 and 1945, and so did you have a sense that you were? Did they just tell you were working on something for the war effort and they didn't give you any more specifics than that, or did you have a sense that what you were working on was going to be used in some way?
For the war?
Yeah.
That's what we thought. They told us that they didn't say it would be used. Now, we would be helping win the war. But we didn't know what on earth that we'd be helping do.
And do you remember where you were when you heard about the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yes, I was at work. And they announced it, you know. That was at first you were glad, you know, to think the war was over. And you know, the first thing I thought of, well, my boyfriend will be home. And then I got to thinking, they'd start telling all the people that were killed over there. And it made you think of something else, you know, that I had a part in it, because that's what they told us. They said, been dropped, you know, there, and then they said so many thousand, or million, or whatever, I don't remember. But anyway, I didn't much like that idea that I had a part in it. But, you know, war's war. Ain't nothing you can do about it but try to stop it. And I still, you know, not like I used to, but I still don't like the idea, you know. But you gotta do it. somebody does.
How did you think working on the Manhattan Project has affected or influenced your life?
Affected my life. Well, I think that one thing, if somebody tells you something, tells you not to tell it, it really, to me, I think, you know, well, you're not supposed to tell it, so I don't. I'm much more prone to not tell anything than I used to be. I guess it's just habit, you know, that I learned. And it showed me how easy progress can destroy a whole place. You know, like the whole communities, several communities that it destroyed. And it made so many older people unhappy. My father-in-law, I never did know him, but they built Norris Dam. Well, he had to move from his home he had worked for. Okay, he bought a home down on the river right outside Oak Ridge. Well, he had to move from that. And he didn't live long after that. It made him, you know, real sad. Not that that killed him, but still, I think from what I've heard, he had a part. It had a part in worrying him to death, you know. But you know, we just have to realize that when you have progress, things change. And we have to change with it.
When did you stop working at Oak Ridge?
In 45.
So
Now, I didn't get laid off. They laid off a lot of them, but I didn't. I quit because I got married, and my husband didn't want me to work there. I never did know why, but he didn't. But he started working there.
And then you became a teacher again, is that right?
Oh, yes. I started, I decided if I wasn't going to work, I was going to go back to school. So I thought about it, and thought about it. And in the meantime, I had a son 4 years after I was married. And then after he was born, he was sick all the time. And the doctor advised us to get out of Oak Ridge because at that time everybody had cold smoke and he was allergic to it. So we built us a house out in the country at Coalfield, Tennessee. And they found out that I'd taught school a year. So one of the teachers had to take a leave, and she recommended me to finish her year. So that gave me the idea, I'm going back to school. So I finished her year, and in the meantime I started going to night classes at the University of Tennessee. And I continued on until I got my degree. And I started teaching first grade, and I taught it 8 years. and the superintendent wanted to know if I'd like to go to high school. And I said yes. So I did. And then when I got in high school teaching, I decided that I was going to get my master's degree. So I I went summer and everything, you know, till I got and my husband kept pushing me because he knew that he had this breathing and stomach problems from the war, they said, you know, nervousness and everything. But anyway, he encouraged me, you go ahead and get that. And so I did, got my master's, and I got it in what I really wanted to do, is to be a guidance counselor. And I was a counselor for 35 years, 29 in one school, 36 in the other. And I did that until I retired. And I retired in '89. But in the meantime, my husband died. And that's right, he died after I got into counseling, yeah. And so I thought, liking to learn like I did, that I thought, well, I don't know why I can't work on my doctorate degree. Well, in the meantime, my daughter got married, and she had a little girl, another little girl, and so about halfway through it, I was enjoying those little girls so much. And I just thought, what use? I was getting older, you know, and I thought, what use of me learning all this? I mean, going to school now and spending all this money, and when I can be enjoying those kids. And that's exactly what I did. And I retired early, and I've enjoyed them, all of them. I've got one boy and 5 girls, besides my great-grandchildren. And I got a bunch of them. 7, I think.
That's wonderful.
No, I've got 9. I got 9. And I've been retired now ever since '89. And I've been a widow for 46 years. And I think I've lived a good life. I've been happy, and that's the main thing.
Well, I guess is there anything else you'd like to share? Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I went into labor 2 days before the gate opened to Oak Ridge. You know, you had to have a pass to get in and everything. And I thought, well, why couldn't it have been a little bit later? I mean, wait a little while and let him be born the first baby. But they kept me in the hospital with this wild blood pressure. And the nurses told me the next morning, said this, after he was born a few minutes before midnight, they said, well, he didn't make it to see Marie McDonald. She was a movie star at that time. And so she said he was born so many minutes before they opened the gate. And the first, you know, the last one. But he didn't.
Yeah, I'd like to say they had a parade for me after I was born.
Yeah, they had a big parade for him, for me. And that vice president was there and all those people. Yeah, he likes to tell people that they and that's something I don't think he knew till all this started. So I learned to keep my mouth shut, you know.
Something that she didn't tell you, that I was a teacher, my sister was a teacher. All three of my sister's daughters are teachers.
Oh, four of them. One of them's a dance
Well, one
teacher,
of them's a dance
and the others are teachers. One of them has her doctor's degree, and one of them has her master's. So they've all followed in my footsteps.
That's wonderful. A whole family of teachers.
And I had three brothers that were teachers.
She's inspired all of her younger brothers to go to school, get education, and always pushed us to achieve. So.
Well, I wanted them to do it, and I knew that they were capable. Now I've got a great-grandson that graduates this year, and I started on him, but I'm not encouraging him to be a teacher. But I didn't encourage them. I didn't. In fact, I tried to get him to do some other things, but figured he'd make more money, but... I started teaching school at $78 a month.
In $78 a month in 1944? Is that right?
1943.
43. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well.
But you know that it went a long ways then.
Yeah.
But I can't visualize it.